Hello and welcome to the 6th installment of our AI for Business livestream series from Thoughtbot. My name is Ferdia. I'm a senior product designer here at Thoughtbot, and I'm going to be taking you through the remainder of this series for about the next 4 weeks or so. As we said in past streams, if you've been able to catch those, this series is a little bit different to our other AI in Focus series, which had. These streams we're trying to keep it quite light, okay? So there's going to be no real sort of heavy technical definitions or coding or anything like that. We're also going to try to keep each stream to about 30 minutes, so it'll be nice and short each week, hopefully. I'm going to be hosting this each week, and sometimes we have some of my amazing colleagues will drop in from time to time to chat as well. But for this week, it's just going to be myself, so you'll have to bear with me in that regard. Cool. Let's just take a quick look at the overview of the series here. So in previous streams, we talked about the history of AI and kind of how to harness it. And then for the last 3 weeks, we were kind of looking at the 3 areas that AI can be really beneficial to your business right now. So we covered automation, we covered cognitive insights, and then last week we looked at cognitive engagement. If you haven't watched those previous streams, the recordings are all on YouTube. And I'd recommend watching them just for posterity. This one will make a little bit more sense having seen the previous ones, but you can also watch them independently. Hopefully there'll still be some benefit, some beneficial information in doing it that way too. So this week we're going to be taking basically everything we learned so far and asking the question about whether we should introduce AI in an evolutionary way or in a revolutionary one. And then later on in the series, we're going to look at some of the challenges you might face when trying to incorporate AI into your product or into your business, and how to overcome those. And then finally, I say this on every stream, but just a disclaimer, and that when I'm using the term AI, we're using that as in a really broad sense. Okay, it's a bit of an umbrella term, a catch-all. It's quite loose in terms of definition, but it kind of keeps things a little bit simple and helps us kind of stay focused on the outcomes rather than the technical minutiae. And that's the purpose of this series. So it is quite high level and it's quite broad, but hopefully you'll bear with us in that regard as well. Cool. So this week, as I said, the topic is evolution or revolution. So which approach to take. So as I mentioned there in the intro, we covered the kind of 3 great applications of AI earlier on this month, and we looked at AI-powered automation, and we looked at cognitive insights, which kind of means identifying patterns in complex data sets to derive kind of actionable insights from that data. And then we looked at cognitive engagement last week, which is about kind of interacting with machines, basically. And we were looking at these things with the specific intention of how do we include them in our product or in our business processes, right? And from that, some of you, if you were watching, you might be excited, and the light bulb's gone off in your head because you can see some easy wins for your business right away. And if you fall into that category, that's great. Glad to hear it. For other folks out there, you might be feeling a bit daunted by the size of the task ahead, a little bit anxious if you're considering making a huge pivot for your business, and that can feel quite daunting, but you might feel it's necessary to capitalize on this new technology. And honestly, kind of both a sort of a quick win approach or a bold change kind of approach, they're both viable options for companies, or they're certainly worth exploring. And you'll see like a lot of articles online and kind of articles or even YouTube videos that'll like show the success and failures of both approaches. So yeah, we're basically calling these two things the evolutionary approach and the revolutionary approach. And so to try to help you decide which one to take in for your business, we're just going to look at some industry examples of both this week. And if hopefully one will kind of stick out for you as kind of something that aligns with where you're at with your business. But we're going to start I suppose we're going to start by revisiting, for those who've seen the previous streams, our delectable AI-powered side business, Thought Burgers. Thought Burgers is a new and very successful and entirely fictitious fast food company. It's home to the tastiest and most thought-provoking burgers. And as I said, we've discussed this in previous streams, so if you followed those, you'll know that things have been going great for Thought Burgers, and we've opened up branches right across London, the UK, and we're spreading further afield into Europe now as well. But with the rising popularity of the brand, we've hit a big problem where delivery orders during rush hours, they're taking too long to get to our customers. So our goal kind of throughout this example with Thought Burgers has been to reduce those wait times and rush hours to get food to our customers quicker, which will really add a lot of value to our customers. Okay. So to achieve this goal of getting our burgers into our customers' hands quickly, we explored using AI to kind of help us get there, and we mapped basically where AI could help onto our existing delivery process. Okay, so we looked at how automation could help us with some kind of driver scheduling. We looked at how cognitive insights could be applied maybe to make kind of some more insightful and informed decisions. And then we looked at how cognitive engagement as well could be used. So all these kind of 3 areas can all be used and applied to make our current delivery process a little bit better. And we kind of concluded that we can use them to make the driver scheduling more efficient. Maybe we can improve the route optimization of deliveries, and then maybe we can also improve like the triaging of orders between different branches. So we're sending them to the optimal branch to get it to the customer, maybe not just the most geographically close one. Okay, so basically there were lots of potential wins available to us here, and that we explored kind of in detail in those previous streams. But what we've looked at so far for Thought Burgers is an incremental approach. Okay, we're layering in some automation, then some cognitive insights, and so on. And like this approach is evolutionary in that way. Each of these enhancements could be done independently, and then you layer more on top, and gradually that'll help us achieve our goal of delivering food to customers more quickly. So you're kind of looking at a lot of incremental improvements helping us reach our goal. So it's definitely a worthwhile approach, and it could get us to the promised land in this context. But if we were to consider maybe an evolutionary approach, it's worth zooming out for a minute from our kind of problem. just to have a think about, like, could we change things in a broader sense. So, like, ultimately the goal is to get our delicious burgers to our customers quickly. Um, and as we just saw, we've been looking closely at kind of optimizing our existing processes, but it is worth considering, is there an opportunity to completely reinvent them? So could we take like some really bold steps to get food to our customers that would be revolutionary from what we're doing, from what we're doing right now? And the obviously revolutionary example is teleportation, but sadly this doesn't exist yet that we know of, at least. So the next most revolutionary approach available to us is probably going to be a fleet of delivery drones. So drones have the potential, in Thought Burger's case, to slash our delivery times massively, possibly even more than all the other efforts combined, all our kind of tweaking to our existing processes, and it could probably do it in a fairly short space of time as well. Um, so while this kind of, I guess, represents a major departure from the existing process, we could actually still take elements from the AI-powered scheduling and kind of the order triaging we explored previously, but apply them to our fleet of delivery drones instead. So, like, we'll know which branches have the kitchen capacity, say, and the stock, and we kind of have a rough idea of how to manage delivery entities, I suppose. So the two approaches can work in tandem to some degree. Um, and again, it is worth noting, all of our top burgers examples, they're very basic, just to illustrate the point. And in this case, the point is that your business will often have two paths available to you, and you kind of need to choose which one you want to go down. And like, obviously for top burgers, drones sound like the obvious win here, but it's worth noting that a larger pivot like this generally carries a significant risk, or a significant, like, increased level of risk. So it's going to require a lot of investigation and research and testing on your business's part to make sure that you're able to mitigate against that, and that you're certain that you want to make this big change. Um, Now, I'm sure top drone companies like Mana Aero or whoever else have a lot of these things covered already. But hypothetically, some of the things that Top Burgers may need to look into are, what's the max flight time of a drone? Will drones be able to support the weight of really large family orders? If you've 6 or 7 people, can a single drone carry that order? Will customers be able to take a drone drop in a busy urban area? So we're mostly based in London. What if people don't have gardens? Are they able to drop into those kind of areas? What if drone regulations change? And that's obviously something that's often in a little bit of a flux, because it's quite a new technology. And then what if those regulations vary by country or region, or they change, in different places? So that's another consideration around regulations. Will seagulls attack our food when they're en route? And then, because of the thought-provoking nature of our burgers, will these well-fed seagulls get ideas above their station and kind of rise up against us? So these are all very real and legitimate concerns. And these considerations are kind of all without even mentioning, like, the set of ethical and legal and societal challenges that will come with this approach, and which, as I said in the intro there, we'll discuss these in more detail in a later stream in this series. But there's going to be other challenges there as well. And if you remember from last week's stream, we looked at the Klarna example, which is worth remembering, because that was with cognitive engagement. Is the all Whoa, my apologies. Seemed the stream seemed to drop out a little bit there. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much of that was caught. But basically, both revolutionary and evolutionary approaches are viable here in Thought case. Both can probably help us achieve that goal of reducing our delivery times during rush hours, which is, again, the value that we want, the kind of desired output, the goal that we want from this project in the first place. So it's just a matter of deciding which route makes more sense, because both can probably get us there. So, which can we afford, which are we in the best place to do, which will resonate with our customers the most, and give them the most benefit. So yeah, both can probably get us there. So to look at an industry example of an evolutionary approach, we're going to look at Netflix. And they kind of do have quite an evolutionary approach to AI. You could probably make the argument that Netflix's kind of revolutionary move was in 2007. And at that time, they pivoted from basically posting DVDs to customers to this online streaming platform. So that was a big change. That was like their key move. In the age of AI, their utilization of this kind of new technology has been more subtle and kind of more evolutionary. They might be exploring, bold steps with like AI for video production, but as far as their consumer application goes, anyway, it doesn't really show any noticeable changes. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll kind of see the fingerprints of AI at play within that app. So as an example, for those who use the service way back when, in the early 2010s, and you might remember that the cards for the movies on your homepage used to show the actual movie poster, or like the DVD cover as the thumbnail, or something very close to it. But now, thanks to AI powered cognitive insights and kind of automation, this isn't the case anymore. So without without a lot of people even realizing it, Netflix's personalization capabilities have sort of gradually just grown, and they're incrementally improving over time, and now they're really, really powerful. So like for those thumbnails, there are now basically multiple pieces of custom artwork for each show and each movie, and they can be displayed as the thumbnails. And maybe in future they use generative AI to produce those thumbnails, or maybe they already are. I'm not sure on that. But each thumbnail you see basically is going to be tailored to what you specifically like to watch. So for example, let's say I'm a fan of romantic movies, right? The thumbnail for Gladiator might then include the final scene with Russell Crowe in this field with kind of soft Tuscan light and his little son running towards him in the distance, and it's finally a family reunited, and it's all lovely and emotional. But for other people, they might be more into action movies. So the same Gladiator film, might have Russell Crowe looking kind of buff in the arena and shouting like, "Are you not entertained?" in the thumbnail for somebody else. So same film, just tailored to what a person specifically likes to watch. And Netflix can basically provide that level of specificity because they track basically everything you do on the site. What you're looking at, what you click on, what you search for, what you watch, how long you watch it for, all that stuff. They're monitoring all that. And that data allows them to kind of give that level of personalization. It also allows them to customize the homepage layout. So basically, the order of each row on your Netflix homepage and the content within each row is selected and arranged by algorithm. The content in the top rows are the things they think you will like to watch the most. And then the things like further down the page are the things they'll think you might enjoy, but you're less likely to enjoy. And like those trending rows as well that you'll see, they show content trending specifically for you. It's not really a global trend. It's things that people are watching that are sort of trending, but that we think that you will like. And even like the number of rows you're going to see in the homepage is customized to each specific user. And you might be like wondering, like, why are they doing this basically? But Netflix's goal is to get quality engagements, right? So they want users to start and to continue to watch a show or a movie. If they're doing that, then the user or the subscriber, they're deriving more value from their subscription, which is making them more likely to stay loyal to the service and to continually pay. So having this level of kind of personalized discovery, it makes sense with that goal in mind, because it can really help kind of move the needle there to get people finding more of what they like watching, and encouraging them to watch more of what they like. So it all kind of feeds into that overall goal. So on the surface, basically, Netflix looks the same, sort of as it was in 2007. It's an online streaming company. That's what it is. But under the hood, this kind of big shift has occurred. And as I said, it was implemented gradually, kind of by incrementally layering on more powerful algorithms and customizations. And it basically results in this service that continuously kind of gets better and grows. Okay, so that's an example of an evolutionary approach that works really well, helps grow your business, and it's a really good use case for it. And then if we wanted to look at a revolutionary approach, we could look at the FlyZoo Hotel. So just imagine you're in town for a conference and you had a long day, and you kind of come back to the hotel and you want to ask the bartender where you can go to blow off some steam. Only you can't do this in FlyZoo Hotel because the bartender is a giant robot arm and it doesn't have a mouth. This hotel is basically the creation of Alibaba. It's a kind of a slightly weird and futuristic hotel in Hangzhou. I'm probably mispronouncing that, so I do apologize. But it's in China. And it's an attempt to revolutionize the hotel industry by harnessing technology, robotics, and AI. And they try to do this basically in lots of different ways. So, for example, rather than trying to reduce the lines at check-in by kind of optimizing the concierge staffing schedules to make sure you have enough people there, a bit like what we looked at with delivery drivers, trying to make sure we have enough drivers. FlyZoo kind of tries to circumvent that problem altogether. So you can check in via the app, and when it's time to check out, there aren't any lines. You can just basically pack up and leave. You never need to collect or return a key card because the hotel uses facial recognition software to grant you access to your room, or into elevators or any other areas that you have access to. Like they'll be able to do that all electronically. There are also no Wi-Fi details in each room. So instead of the little card with this is your Wi-Fi password, every room has a smart assistant. So if you ask it, what's the Wi-Fi password, or can I get some more water, please, it'll respond back to you. And if you are asking for it to send more water to your room, it'll be delivered by a robot that kind of looks like R2-D2's sort of second cousin. And then if you're struggling to figure out what you want, you don't know what to order, and they can use augmented reality to kind of showcase what a food selection would look like before it arrives. Now, to be fair, Alibaba is not a hotel chain. It's a massive technology company, and they're developing the technology to sell it to hotel chains. So FlyZoo is kind of like a big testing ground or a big pilot program for this technology. So in that sense, this is a much less risky revolutionary approach than if the Marriott hotel chain were to pivot completely to something like this and introduce an army of robots to each of their hotels. That would be way more risky. This might also be an example where this sort of revolutionary approach is maybe not worth it. It does kind of seem a little bit ridiculous or a bit gimmicky in some places. But that being said, to be fair to Alibaba, it is a sizable investment to do this pilot and have it working. So it's not entirely risk-free, and it's definitely interesting. It's an interesting attempt, and if it works, I guess it has the potential to be really a revolutionary application of AI and kind of related technologies in robotics and for the hotel industry. And they could really upend the entire industry if it works and if it proves successful. So basically there we've got two examples of the two different approaches. A lot of it probably comes down to your company's appetite for risk, and probably funding too, because some of the revolutionary things require maybe deeper pockets initially, at least. The evolutionary tends to be safer and it can definitely deliver more value, but it's probably slightly lower potential kind of upshot from it. Whereas the revolutionary approach it's a lot riskier. It probably requires more capital up front, but it probably does have a higher ceiling, like a higher potential bar. But there's definitely a common thread, I guess, in both the evolutionary and the revolutionary approaches, and that's that you need good data and you need lots of it to really make use of AI. So with that in mind, rather than kind of treating your data capture like a chore or kind of a means to an end, when you're considering which approach to take, it's also worth considering if you could turn the process of data collection into something more valuable, like a business or a product on its own, right? Just something to keep in mind. We're going to look at one more example, one more industry example, which I think is pretty cool. So let's say I asked you to travel back in time, like 15 or 20 years, to start a self-driving car company. How would you do it? Where would you start? A lot of people will answer that, we need to found the next Tesla, or to start kind of producing cars that can drive on the road, at least, like that would be the starting point. And there's definitely logic in that. But an alternative approach would be to create reCAPTCHA. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen these. They're these kind of annoying verification prompts that make you identify a word or select the buses or the traffic lights or the pedestrian crossings in the images, right? So that company, reCAPTCHA, was founded to solve a real problem. And side note on that, actually, one of the founders then went on to found Duolingo, which is a pretty cool track record to have both of these. But basically, reCAPTCHA was designed to solve a problem, and that was to protect kind of websites from spam and abuse and bots and the likes. Okay, so it solves a real need, or it solved a real need. But the offshoot of this became that they were actually able to gather extremely valuable data at scale. So this was like a mass data collection product, really. Now, originally, it kind of tested to see if you were a real person by kind of showing you these sort of hard to read text puzzles, like with fuzzy letters or distorted letters, and you have to type in what you think those are. And the byproduct then of this data collection of blurred words and numbers was actually able to digitize the New York Times. So they know basically what a lot of slightly blurred or fuzzy words are supposed to mean. So they can digitize hard copy scans really quickly and at scale, which is pretty cool, and I'm sure very valuable to the New York Times as well. And then the next iteration of reCAPTCHA, which again kind of solved the same need of the bot spam problem as before, so it's still solving the same problem, but the next iteration had users identifying buses or bicycles or motorcycles or pedestrian crossings and so on. And this mass data collection then is used to basically refine Waymo's self-driving vehicles and their systems. So while reCAPTCHA is an extreme and maybe even an ethically questionable example, it is very clever, and there are learnings you can kind of take from that. Okay, so you can maybe try to identify a good product you can create now that collects the data you need to create an exceptional product in future. So when you're weighing up basically which approach to take, maybe you can think like, we solve problem X now using an evolutionary approach, okay, as we go. And when we do this, when we're solving problem X, we're gathering the data to solve problem Y, which would be totally revolutionary approach. And so even if the revolutionary approach isn't available to you right now, keep data collection opportunities at the fore in your kind of AI planning and strategy, and something might open up to do something really revolutionary at the end. So yeah, data capture kind of always needs to be top of mind, I guess, when you're looking at AI. So just to wrap up then for this week, the bottom line here is basically that you probably have a choice to make for your business. The evolutionary approach is less risky, and it'll probably fit the majority of businesses, to be honest. And a lot of evolutions do lead to revolution after all in the long run. So it is a viable option, and we saw that with Netflix, how you can continuously improve in that way. If you take this approach, you're probably going to need to ask yourself some questions like whether this will move the needle enough or generate enough like return on investment, or do you risk falling behind the market by kind of playing it safe? So like, can you afford not to be revolutionary, I guess, is a question you need to ask yourself. And then if the revolutionary option is available to you, you'll need to consider how much risk you're willing to take, basically, whether you can afford it, and whether your customers are ready for this kind of big, huge change. Which again, Klarna example last week, we saw that they moved too early. Customers kind of pushed back and they had to recalibrate. So only you can really decide which will work best for your specific product or business. But if you stay focused on a clear goal, and that make sure that, I suppose, staying focused on a clear goal, make sure everything you do is rooted in kind of, or everything you're going to do is rooted in providing customer value. And we've spoken about that in every stream so far. That's the key thing. So you want to stay focused on your goal, and then you analyze each step of your business process, and then you look at the technology available to you. And if you kind of follow that process of goal, look at your process, and then look at the technology available, it should become clearer whether you need to enhance your existing process or start from scratch with a kind of a more revolutionary approach. If you're unsure of which approach to take, do feel free to reach out to us at ThoughtBot. We'd love to hear your unique cases and to maybe give you some guidance on that. That's it for this week, folks. Just a couple of minutes over time. We're aiming to be back in 2 weeks' time, so there's going to be no live stream next Friday. But in 2 weeks we'll return with another one, and we'll be looking at some of the challenges, the adoption challenges that you might face when rolling out AI into your product or your business. Hope that was beneficial. Hope you all have a great weekend, and see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks very much for tuning in.